Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Dungeon Boss Face-Off series. Sorry for the delay in posting. I know it's been a week since I posted the last time, but fatherly life has been keeping me busy. But as of right now, wife's asleep, baby's asleep, just scarfed down a massive pile of Panda Express, shotgun to Red Bull, and I'm feeling pretty good. So here we go. Today we're going to be looking at a user submission. This is one that somebody requested. I apologize for not knowing your name and giving you credit for it, but it was in the comments, and that is going to be to look at Nitpick versus Icepick. So far with these face-off series, I have been trying to do people that are the same element. Those people are much easier to compare. This will be the first one where we're looking pretty drastically at different elements here and comparing two individual ones. So there is a little bit of subjectivity here. I'm not going to say that this is an exact science. I do have some things that I've considered as far as the Rune loadout goes. That is going to be the major deciding factor here for the most part. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the actual stats first, comparing Nitpick versus Icepick. Both of these guys are demon casters, right off the bat here. Archfiend, Nitpick. Archfiend is just a skin that I have on there, but Nitpick, he has a total hero power of 4526 as far as what the system says. Compare that to Icepick. Icepick has a hero power, according to the system, of 3984. So right off the bat, the system thinks that Nitpick is better. If you've watched all or some of my videos in the past, you will see that Nitpick actually ranked very low on my priority series in terms of just red heroes. So let's compare the two of these here and see how they actually stack up. We're going to go back to Nitpick for first here. We'll go down his stats here. Stats, he has a couple of calculated ones. That's largely due to his epic. Defense, max health, crit chance, but also attack. He's got a nice passive on here, Fire of the Spirit, which is impacted by skill. Everybody's going to get this, so even though the base is 1734, he is going to get roughly a 15 to 16% boost. As you keep increasing skill, this will go up more and more. So obviously lower levels will have the 15%, but upper levels will have 16 or more. So that being said, this 2013, even though it is calculated, it is accurate. Everybody's going to get that at max level. Defense, 1512 base, but he's going to get a 30% for epic. We don't want to discard that. That's going to be an extra 500 defense. That's going to put his defense up to 2000 when he's maxed out. Not saying that that's going to be a thing for a demon caster, but something to consider. Skill is 1512. It is unmodified, easy enough to compare. Then max health, nothing to write home about. 4124 base, which is very low, amongst the lowest in the entire game, to be honest. So definitely not very good. We see the plus 3% epic there. If we look at it, that max health is going to boost up to 20%. 20% of that 4,000 is going to be another 800. So not bad, but still only puts him at 5,000 health. That's pretty weak sauce. Take a quick look at Icepick. Now I have the values written down, so if you forget what they are, I'm not going back and forth this time. I'll just go right down the list again. Base attack on Icepick is 2030, which is higher than what I had without any modifications on Nitpick. Nitpick had 2013, Icepick has 2030. Advantage in terms of base attack is going to go to Icepick. Defense, 1400, no modifiers at all. It was already lower than Nitpick, plus Nitpick got 30% for epic. Major deficiency here. Skill 1800, largely because he is probably somewhat of a healer-ish. I mean, it's not really a heal, but he has an odd mechanic there, so he is kind of able to heal himself for the most part. So skill is obviously going to be a bigger impact for him. Max health, also unmodified, 4442. Again, very low in the grand scheme of things as far as all heroes in the game are considered. 4400 is pretty low. He does have a naturally high crit chance. 28% is pretty decent for his skill. He's getting plus 23% just at base level, where a lot of other ones usually get around plus 20 based on their skill. Interesting thing about Nitpick or Icepick, he's got a couple of unique traits, but those traits aren't really incredibly buffing. So he has the Aegis Shield, which helps for his defense. He has the extra crit damage. I don't know what the mechanic on this is. There is no documentation on it from what I could find, but his crit damage increases as health decreases below 50%. I don't have anything to base that on in terms of actual numbers output. This is sort of a big deal though, because if you use Icepick correctly, you can allow him to get basically you need to stack up on some defense, but he needs to take a pretty big hit in the first round, because then this one here, this tit for tat, regardless of who he's going against, he's going to do crit damage against them. So in the early days when Icepick first came out, a lot of people would kill him, but if they didn't kill him, that first skill that he does, or that first ability, was absolutely brutal because of this Tortured Soul trait. I can't give you the exact numbers on it, so we're just going to sort of disregard it for now. And then he just can't be frozen, chilled, or frostbitten. That's pretty common for most of the frost heroes, or the ice heroes, or water heroes, whatever you want to call them. So in terms of base stats, who gets what? Obviously Nitpick. Nitpick is better in defense. He is better in, I guess in the grand scheme of things, maxed out, he has better health. But total base stats, actually Icepick wins in attack, Icepick wins in skill, and Icepick wins in health. So base stats wise, Icepick is better. However, we cannot disregard the epic factor for Nitpick. So Nitpick, he is going to outpace Icepick in terms of health. He is also going to outpace him in terms of defense. I don't know if you want to consider the epics, but it's something to throw in there in a certain case scenario, in which case Nitpick will win in a couple of those other categories as well. Now these guys are both casters. Let's go ahead and look at their actual damage output and see where they fall in terms of who puts out more damage. First things first, Nitpick has an AoE to start with. His AoE does 1689. It is an AoE attack, so it hits everybody. This is roughly, it's right about 100% of his base attack, which is pretty good for an AoE skill. The more that you beef this up, the more damage it's going to do, obviously. Compare that with Icepick. Icepick's first skill is also an AoE, which is a nice thing by comparison. His first ability does 1980. 1980 is, well, it's slightly less than 100% of his main attack. It's right around 90-some%. So in terms of total damage output, his AoE, his first one, is actually significantly better than Nitpick's. Supplemental concerns as far as these skills here. We do. It's hard to quantify the differences in damage output between burn and frostbite. If you're going against AI defenses, frostbite is going to be better because it is going to be almost guaranteed that the PC is going to be using those skills. Using it against somebody that's attacking you, PvP defense, for example, the player can always just do a basic attack and negate all frostbite damage without a problem, whereas they wouldn't be able to negate burn. So, like I said, kind of hard to quantify the two damages there, but frostbite does 20% damage to them if it actually triggers, whereas burn's not going to do anywhere close to that. Plus, it's a percent damage, so if they have 100,000 hit points, they're still going to do 20% of that. If they have 500 hit points, they're still going to do 20%. It's not numerical based, it's percent based. Second skill, we're going to start on Icepick, just because if you look at it, it's just a self-heal. It is not damage, so in terms of damage output, it doesn't even matter what it is, because Nitpick is going to be better here. So if we look at Nitpick's, his second skill is a single target attack. Savage Slash, 2 attacks, 780 apiece. This came out to be, I think it was about 70% of his base attack, and he does that twice. There's no extra modifiers on here. It says flesh tearing, but it is not anything specific like the beasts where it does like a flesh shredder where it does more damage to unarmored. It is just a basic attack essentially. Last of his abilities is 1951. This is actually the first and only of his skills that actually does more than 100% of his base attack. It is his strongest attack, and it is also a single target attack. Has an extra chance to burn on it, which is nice, but we don't count that in terms of overall damage. But this one does do over 100% of his base attack, so that's good for us there. Icepick's last ability is also a single target attack, Blood in the Water. 2 flesh tearing attacks on an enemy for 913 each, and does additional damage to targets with 25 health or 25% health or less. So obviously this works similar to the other demon Ella with her Kiss of Death. Does more damage if they're almost dead, which unfortunately is kind of counterproductive because we'd like it to do more damage as they have more health, because even the basic value when they're getting lower on health is going to kill them. All this mechanic really does is sort of guarantee that it's going to kill them, but it's nice to have that little guarantee here and there. But 2 attacks, 913 each, slightly less than 50% of his base attack. So it's similar to basically his, it's 2 of his basic attacks for the most part. So as far as total damage output goes, we could say without really a question that Nitpick does more, just because of the fact that he has a middle ability. If we didn't have, even if we didn't include that middle ability, the extra damage that Nitpick does, well, I guess on his final ability, Nitpick's single target attack probably adds up to about what Icepick's does on this attack here. So really the reason Nitpick gets higher damage output is just because of that middle ability. So if we put them both on PvP defense over the course of the 3 turns, Nitpick will do more damage, plus he's also has that chance to burn on there. Now, that gets us into the major difference when we look at these heroes here, and that's going to be the Rune loadout. The Rune loadout, for every hero, sort of has its ups and downs and its max and its mins. Being that these guys are casters, I'm only going to look at increasing the overall attack. So the way that I did this is I looked at it from an endgame perspective. I have not tested the scaling to see how this impacts middle of the road, level 40s, 50s, or anything other than superior runes. I looked at the maximum possible attack that we could give these guys, and so we could get some sort of a comparison. So for example, with water runes, when you look at the runes here, the most you can expect to get as far as a plus attack out of a water rune is likely going to be on one of those nicer runes, and I'll see if I can find one here. I looked through these earlier when I was doing my testing, but I gotta find an attacker here. It's gonna be something like, nope, that's not one. We're looking for one that's got plus damage, and I apologize for not writing down which person actually had it. And here we go, Hopper's going to have one. So looking at the blue runes, we can see that there's a plus attack of 269, plus attack damage or attack of 250. The most you can expect to get is right in that 270 spot. I've not seen any water runes that have 2 attacks on them. If they exist, I don't have one. I went through every one of my superior runes here to look for it. In the interest of calculation, I've just assumed that this is going to be 300. So the max you can get for blue runes is plus 300 attack. So right off the bat, when we look at individual heroes here, like Icepick has 2 of these spots that are blue runes, that's a severe deficiency in terms of the rune power that we can get in terms of attack. Add that to the fact that we also have a yellow rune. The max that I've seen for yellow is also 300-ish. So that means we have 3 rune slots that have a maximum of roughly 300 attack that we can add on here. Compare that to Nitpick. Nitpick only has the yellow rune that is limiting. The maximum damage we can throw on a fire rune, we get these double attacks here. These double attack runes scale up to about 900 attack. So with these first 2 fire runes, we have 900 and we have 900. That's massively more than what we're going to get out of a water hero. Combine that with the nature rune, also has a cap of about 900. We can see that here, 911. The double attack dark runes are also about 900. So we have 4 rune slots on Nitpick that have 900 attack added to them, plus the yellow one, which is 300 total extra attack that we can add on ballpark. We're not looking at any 4th stats at all. We're not even really looking at any 3rd stats. We're looking at the double attacks. It adds a total of 3,900 attack power. The maximum, on the other hand, for Icepick is much, much less. So Icepick has 3 rune slots that are only maxed out at 300, and then 2 of them that are 900, for a total extra attack power of 2,700. So 3,900 versus 2,700, it's a pretty sizable difference. In fact, I'll do the calculation for you quick here. And it is 45%, basically a 45% increase. So in terms of extra attack power that we can add, the supplemental attack power, a fire hero versus a water hero, a fire hero can have roughly 45% higher attack output, which is huge. So this is why I didn't want to originally compare people of different elements, because we have to consider that that major discrepancy in the runes. Now, as newer and newer heroes come out, we'll see ones that break the traditional rune loadout. Obviously, Shade was the first one, Koros was the second one, Hopper is another one. They do have different loadouts that could offset those. So ultimately, in order for Icepick to have been stronger attack-wise, we would have needed to have seen Nitpick have somewhere around half of what the attack that Icepick has in order to make it even close, because in terms of extra attack power, Nitpick has an extra 1,200. In order to balance that out against Icepick, they would have to be massively scaled differently. The only way that would happen is if Nitpick had just a base attack and Icepick was the one that had the epic and it had the plus 30%. That's the only way that we'd be able to get that extra 1,200 makeup there. So, all things considered then, that leaves us with the question in terms of which one of these guys is better. In terms of pure damage output, Nitpick pretty much takes the cake. When you try to compare all things being equal and putting your best possible runes on there, Nitpick is just going to keep outpacing Icepick for the most part. The extra status effects, the burn versus the frostbite, burn is always going to be more deadly than frostbite. And so I think we can say pretty much without a question that the winner of this one is indeed going to be Nitpick. So he's not high on my list for great heroes to have, but if you were curious about these guys, you can see he's only epic level 2 because I don't care about him. But if you're curious, I am going to say that Nitpick is the winner of this particular face-off. If you disagree, or if you think I overlooked something or seriously misunderstood the rune loadouts in terms of who can ultimately be stronger given the same quality of runes, definitely leave something in the comments. Otherwise, any questions, comments, concerns, you can also leave those below. Otherwise, as always, thanks for watching, and stop by again. Thanks. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting my channel. If you like this video, please show your continued support by hitting that like button, and be sure to check out both my YouTube channels for new content all the time. And always remember, peace is a lie, there's only passion. We'll see you next time.